Welcome to Code the Future. I'm Matt Chandler, Director of Global Public Relations at QNX, and my guest today is Manuel Tagliavini, Software Analyst at S&P Global Mobility. I wanted to have Manuel on the show today to help us unpack the new under-the-hood SDV Developer Report from QNX. The report gives us a rare look into the minds of 1,100 embedded automotive software developers across 8 countries, and it explores such key themes as AI, productivity, regulations, collaboration, innovation, and of course, what they think about the future. But before we get into the results and findings, I want to turn it over to you, Manuel. Maybe you can sort of set the stage, paint a picture for us about what the current reality looks like for automotive developers. And of course, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Matt. Okay, right now being a software developer is like in automotive is like a bit of a paradox. On one side, developers are more important than ever. Car has become like running computers with millions of lines of code embedded in their software modules. See that you go from safety to infotainment, rely on development in terms of software. On the other side, the environment feels quite uncertain. The industry has bet heavily on the development of electric vehicle and full autonomy. But that moment was like a slowdown. Roadmap shifting, and there was a real doubt about whether the software work done for BEV could have been like transition and repurpose for hybrid vehicle. There's that trend that this kind of factor were like creating frustration and also some job insecurity for software developers. In the day-to-day, the challenges are quite big for them. We're talking about long development cycles, tricky integration, and also heavy regulation that are coming not on a daily basis, but quite frequently. I can say that from the report, we see that about 3 in 10 developers say that they work in an excellent environment. And this is a lot of the productivity and retention that are at risk. And we are talking also about another trend that is AI. Developers know that is going to play a massive role. About 90% of them say so, but they also expect that a third of coding jobs could be replaced by AI tools. That's the main risk, and that creates anxiety in the development sector, I say. Both anxiety and also excitement, because AI tool can provide sort of great help for their daily jobs. So, just to summarize, if I had to summarize in few words, how is the climate today? Developers are absolutely essential in the automotive development today in relation with SDV, but they are also navigating a wave of uncertainty, and this could reshape their role in the automotive industry, basically, in few years.
Yeah, no, that's a great summarization. So when you looked at the report itself, I guess what were some of the more surprising findings to you? What really jumped out at you? And I guess are there any other particular takeaways that you think industry leaders ought to be aware of?
Mhm. Well, I would say that there was nothing really, really surprising, like, okay, wow, this is really unexpected. It was more like a contrast in perspective in the industry. So, perspective inside the OEM role. So, if we are comparing business executive versus the people that are working directly on the code, so developers, you see this kind of gap. The executive tends to have like more cautious, some cases also pessimistic about the
Hmm.
future. They are twice as likely to say regulation can't keep up. So they are like they're saying that there are companies that are not ready to manage regulation compliances and this kind of aspects. At the same time, the technology teams, so software development team, the coders basically, they feel more confident. This is something that makes sense. It's quite normal also in other sector, because the executive they have like a broader perspective. They
Yeah.
see like the regulatory overload, the supply chain disruption, the global trade, all this kind of aspect that the individual, the single developers has not visibility or not the full visibility. They don't have the full picture. Developer they are focused on solving problem, debugging a piece of code, so it's normal. I would say that the takeaway here, or the message that we can extract from this different perspective is that if we just lean on one side, you can either stall innovation, due to the fear that you are perceiving. But at the same time, if you run into walls because you didn't see the bigger risk coming, so you have to balance both perspective and include both the perspective, the one from the executive, that they see the whole picture, the whole organization, and the one that of the software developer that is like solving on a
Yeah.
daily basis their issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like they're operating in 2 different realities, right? And, you call it at that sort of gap and how important it is for them both to see, the other side's perspective, right? I think that's a really salient point. You mentioned, there's a lot of caution, at least at the executive level around, the growing compliance burden, the amount of regulations. I think the report called out that last year there were 500 new regulations around in-car technology introduced globally. I mean, do you see that sort of burden improving or worsening over time? What's the trend line from your perspective?
Well, if we're talking about the regulation, I don't see any, let's say, easing of this burden anytime soon. In fact, it's quite the opposite. If anything, it's only going to grow. Look, in 2024, as you mentioned, we are like seeing more than 500 new regulation coming worldwide. And this makes sense because when you think about cars, they are no longer just machine or mechanical tools. They are connected data platforms. So they have like they are on wheels, okay, but they are dealing with software. We are dealing with software, with data ownership, with privacy, with cybersecurity, with all these aspects that need to be regulated, and
Right.
they are like also have to tighten up because yeah, we're talking about touching aspects like consumer trust, safety, and also in some cases national security, because it's something that is touching also this kind of aspect
Yeah.
for a company. So I would say that this kind of burden in terms of regulation can become manageable once you treat the compliance to
Mm.
regulation as a part of the product, as a part of the whole process, not just something that you have to take in a sort of procedure as part of the development.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned national security. I mean, were there any regional differences that jumped out in the data to you? And I guess, one of the other things that I took away was the fact that respondents said that cybersecurity vulnerabilities were the biggest risk to successful SDV rollouts. And I'm just wondering, do you feel that recognition of cybersecurity is that justified given other sort of factors that they're dealing with? I mean, we know that JLR was recently hit by a major cyber attack. They had to seek a $2 billion bailout. So it's definitely prominent within the news these days, but I just sort of wanna get your thinking about how, that plays into it.
Well, one of the main difference that I notice is about is comparing China with US and maybe India, but mainly China. China with the rest of the world is about how likely they were like impacted by software recalls and failure. They consider these like they say about one third, if I remember well, of the developers said that their recall changed their development approach. So how they are behaving, how they are managing bug fixes basically and improving their code. While globally, it's about we're talking about 60%, so double it. This is suggesting one of the two options, like fewer high profile failures. So it could be that the failures that in China are they have been noticed and observed are like less relevant, less critical, let's say, or probably a different way recalls are managed. And I will say the latter. But it points out there is a different approach, a regional approach when you have to deal with innovation in China, in APAC, but mainly in China, compared to US and also Western Europe. I would say that in China, we have the pace of innovation that is tightly linked to the customer demand rather than risk mitigation. So priority is like developing and let's say producing something new and more fresh to the end customer
Right.
instead of, let's say, keeping the risk low for the same
Mhm.
end customer. So there is a different perception of the risk and a different, I would say, slightly different priority in what the OEM or what generally the industry is let's say selling to the customer and producing as a value.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, yeah. No, that piece around functional safety, it differs depending on the region you're in or where you're making cars these days. One of the other things that I want to spend some time on is I noticed that 4 out of 5 developers said that OEMs should shift their precious software resources to the application layer, right? Developing the new features and capabilities, as opposed to sort of getting bogged down in software infrastructure, the plumbing, if you will. Do you sort of see that playing out on the ground? Is that happening more now? Or I guess where do you feel we are on that trend line?
Okay, from that perspective, I can tell you that it's happening, but not completely, not as expected in the past. It would make sense to go towards a sort of a standardization and collaboration or co-development with industry player. So OEM collaborating with tier one, tier two software solution provider, but it's not always, even if it makes sense from a technical point of view, because it's like involving in a sort of development with them in early stage. It would make sense because you would reduce cost, you would, let's say, anticipate possible problems, failures, error. So generally speaking, you are like improving the whole product design and development. It's
Mm,
not really happening. There has been several attempts to that. It's not really happening. Why? My opinion on that, based on the several interviews and research that we've been doing, is that OEM are still trying to. They have some fear of losing
mm,
control of the software stack, of losing control of the what they have developed from a certain point of view. They feel that, let's say, opening the hood and showing to the even to their partners, to their suppliers, what they've done is like revealing the reality of their let's say SDV advancement. Also, it's like telling 100% the truth about what's
yeah.
behind what's, let's say, embedded in their vehicle. So it's about losing control from certain point of view,
Mhm.
and maybe I would say, since there was a promise in the past about the fact that SDV and generally speaking, all these software development in automotive was like they were like triggering new use cases,
Yeah.
new source of revenue, new revenue stream, let's say, with this software as a service approach.
Mhm.
But it's something that there was several attempts. They are not really there because from end user perspective, they were not really well accepted. Or at least it's something that is moving, but is not moving at the same pace that it was expected in the past.
Yeah. So still lots of work to do on that front. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying. One of the other things that jumped out to me was the fact that more than 3/4 of developers said that they see commercial viability for a low tech minimalist, call it the anti SDV. I'm just sort of curious, get your thoughts on that. Slate Auto, I think, has had a ton of pre-orders or whatnot. And even though we know that these anti SDVs will still have a ton of software and technology, just sort of curious what you think about that slice of the market and its potential.
Well, if you're talking about a sort of low tech vehicle, something that could be, there is an interest in the market. There are consumer end users that are not really, that are still not really interested in like a lot of feature in the like related to infotainment or autonomy feature. So there is a market there. The problem is that even if the OEM are going to propose and sell this kind of vehicle with a low tech embedded, let's say, let's call it like that, the base platform in terms of architecture, so hardware architecture and software architecture, they have to be the same or really close to the one that will be featured on more premium luxury or anyway
Mm,
more feature enhanced vehicle. So the point is that you want to sell this kind of low tech vehicle, that's fine. But the expectation from a consumer, from a customer perspective, is
yep.
that the price price tag is like lower. So do you have, as an OEM, the right margin to support the development that has been done from an SDV architectural point of
Right.
view, all the framework? So it's about the economics, about the
Yes.
sustainability of this kind of approach. I would say that this could happen, but for a niche market. They're not
Gotcha.
going to be
Yeah.
like the
Hmm.
volume platform here.
Yeah. It all boils down to the dollars and cents at the end of the day, right? So we're running out of time. Last question for you. Is there one question that you wish the report had asked developers about that didn't, that you're sort of curious about?
Well, if I had to add something that was not over there, it would be something related to the company organizational structure.
Mm.
It's something that we observe, we notice that the company organization, since that we have talked so far about the technical parameter, about the perspective of
Yep.
executive toward the single, let's say, developers, other technical aspects like cybersecurity or regulation, but what about the company organization? Since
Mm.
OEM are traditionally mechanical engineering environment where the mindset is different from what it is required to develop smoothly, in a fast way, quickly, software code. And this is something that can be, let's say, OEM could learn from the IT, from the computing
Mhm.
industry, from the mobile industry, that they are really fast. They have been really fast in developing a new feature, in updating them, in bug fixing the application. So the company organization is something that is playing a key role in how fast, how efficiently OEM can go towards this, let's say, evolution in terms of
Yeah.
SDV readiness. So I would say one of the questions could be how how do you think that the company organization that you have today is like affecting the um, SDV development in your company, and which could be the best, most suitable organization, like independent software development unit, or the
Mhm.
software developers together with a business unit. So this kind of aspect that could be explored and play
Yeah.
really a relevant role in the
Yeah.
development of SDV.
That's a great point, something we missed, and we'll definitely get it on the list for next year's survey if and when we do it. But Manuel, thank you so much for talking to us. I think it's a really interesting perspective that you bring to these results, and we'll see how the rest of the industry digests them. So thanks again.
Thank you so much.